Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the USS Frontier, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. The ship hummed quietly as it moved through space near the edge of human territory. They had been out here for 2 weeks, now updating old star charts and making sure the navigation markers were still working properly. "Captain, I'm getting some weird readings over here," said Lisa Grant from her station at navigation. She was a young officer, only been with the crew for 6 months, but she had sharp eyes for detail. Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind of weird readings?" Lisa frowned at her screen and tapped a few buttons. "Well, sir, our sensors are working fine when I point them at known systems. Everything shows up clear as day, but when I try to scan beyond the boundary markers..." She paused and shook her head. "It's like the sensors just stop working right." "Let me take a look," said Rick Hayes, the ship's science officer. He was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and 20 years of experience in deep space. Rick walked over to Lisa's station and studied her readings. After a few minutes, Rick straightened up with a puzzled expression. "She's right, Captain. Look at this." He pointed to the screen. "Here's our current position, and here are all the mapped systems in this sector. Everything shows up perfectly, but watch what happens when I try to scan this area." He touched a spot on the screen that was marked as empty space. The sensors flickered and the display became fuzzy. Instead of the detailed readings they normally got, the screen showed only vague shapes and unclear data. "Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array," Jake ordered. Pete Collins, the ship's engineer, spoke up from his station. "Already did that. Twice this morning, Captain. Everything checks out perfect. The sensors are working exactly like they should." Jake felt a strange chill run down his spine. In his 15 years in space, he had never seen sensors work perfectly in one direction and fail completely in another. "Lisa, pull up the navigation charts for this whole sector." The main screen changed to show a detailed map of their area of space. Jake could see dozens of star systems, all carefully mapped and labeled. Trade routes connected the major colonies, and warning beacons marked dangerous areas like asteroid fields and unstable stars. But beyond a certain line, the map was almost completely blank. Just empty space with a few basic warnings about uncharted territory. "How long has it been since anyone tried to map those blank areas?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her records. "According to the database, sir, the last official survey mission to this region was 12 years ago. They came back with incomplete data and recommended against further exploration." "What about unofficial missions, private explorers, research ships, anyone?" Rick was already looking through the records. "There have been several attempts, Captain, but they all came back with the same result. Either incomplete data or..." He paused and looked uncomfortable. "Or what, Rick?" "Or they didn't come back at all, sir." The bridge fell quiet except for the normal sounds of the ship's systems. Jake stared at the map on the screen, at all those blank spaces that represented thousands of cubic light years of unexplored space. Humanity had been traveling through space for over 200 years now. They had faster-than-light travel, quantum computers and sensors that could detect a single ship from 50 light-years away. So why were these areas still blank? "Amy, contact Fleet Command," Jake said to his communications officer. "Ask them to send us all available records on exploration attempts beyond the boundary markers." Amy Foster nodded and began working at her station. She was quiet and efficient, the kind of person who got things done without making a fuss about "Kit." After 20 minutes, she looked up with a frustrated expression. "Captain, this is strange. Fleet Command has records of the missions, but most of the actual reports are classified above our clearance level. What I can access doesn't make much sense." "What do you mean?" Amy read from her screen. "Mission 177 to the Kepler Extended Region. Crew of 42. Mission duration, 3 months. Result, inconclusive data gathered. Crew reported equipment malfunctions and navigation difficulties. Mission classified as unsuccessful." She looked up at Jake. "That's it, sir. No details about what they found or what went wrong. Just inconclusive data and equipment malfunctions." Jake felt that chill again. "What about the crews? Are there any personal accounts, interviews, anything?" Amy shook her head. "That's the really weird part, Captain. I tried to look up some of the crew members from these missions. Most of them transferred to other duties right after they got back. Desk jobs, training positions, anything that kept them away from deep space exploration. Dan Murphy, the ship's security chief, had been listening quietly. Now he spoke up. "Captain, I served with a guy named Tony Webb about 8 years ago. He was on one of those survey missions to the outer regions. After he got back, he was different." "Different how?" Dan thought for a moment. "He used to love talking about space, about all the things we might find out there. But after that mission, he wouldn't even discuss it. Said there was nothing worth finding beyond human space and that we should focus on what we already had." Dr. Helen Brooks, the ship's medical officer, looked up from her station. "That's interesting, Dan. I've noticed something similar in the medical records. Several crew members from outer region missions have been treated for anxiety and sleep disorders after returning. Nothing serious, but it's a pattern." Jake stood up and walked to the main screen. He stared at the map, at all those blank spaces that seemed to mock him with their emptiness. Something was wrong here, something that nobody wanted to talk about. "Captain," Lisa said quietly, "there's something else. I've been checking our current position against the old charts. According to the records, we're right at the edge of mapped space, but our sensors are picking up clear signals from at least 3 star systems beyond the boundary, systems that aren't on any chart." Jake turned to look at her. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. They're definitely there. I can even detect some kind of artificial signals like radio transmissions or navigation beacons. But when I try to get detailed scans, the equipment starts acting up." Rick was back at his station, running more tests. "Captain, I think I know what's happening. It's not that our sensors are malfunctioning. It's like something is interfering with them, but only when we try to scan beyond a certain point." "Interfering how?" "I'm not sure, sir, but it's definitely artificial. Natural interference doesn't work this way." Jake felt his heart rate increase. In all his years in space, he had never encountered anything like this. The evidence was clear. There were star systems beyond human space that were inhabited or at least marked with artificial signals. Their technology was perfectly capable of mapping these areas, but somehow every mission sent to explore them either failed or came back with incomplete information, and nobody seemed to question it. Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Lisa, plot a course for the nearest unmapped system, the A, one with the artificial signals." The bridge crew looked at him in surprise. "Captain," Rick said carefully, "we don't have authorization to leave mapped space." Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, smart people who had dedicated their lives to exploration and discovery. They deserved to know what was out there in those blank spaces. "Then we'll ask for forgiveness later," Jake said. "Set course for the unknown." The USS Frontier had been traveling for 2 days now, heading toward the first unmapped system that Lisa had detected. Captain Jake Morrison had ordered the ship's tracking beacon to be shut down, which meant Fleet Command couldn't monitor their position. It was a serious violation of regulations, but Jake felt they had no choice. "Captain, we're getting a message from Admiral Stone at Fleet Command," Amy Foster said from her communications station. Her voice was tense. Jake had been expecting this. "Put it through to my ready room. Kate, you have the bridge." First Officer Kate Williams nodded and took the captain's chair. She was a steady officer with 10 years of experience, and Jake trusted her completely. The crew liked her because she was fair and always listened to their concerns. In his ready room, Jake activated the communication screen. Admiral Robert Stone's face appeared and he looked angry. "Morrison, what the hell do you think you're doing out there?" Stone's voice was sharp. "Your tracking beacon went offline 2 days ago and your last reported position puts you at the edge of mapped space." "Admiral, we've discovered something important," Jake began, but Stone cut him off. "I don't care what you think you've discovered. You will turn around immediately and return to your assigned patrol route. That's an order." Jake felt his jaw tighten. "Sir, with respect, I believe there's something out here that Command needs to know about. Our sensors are detecting inhabited systems beyond the boundary markers. There's nothing out there but empty space and danger, Captain. Those regions are off limits for good reasons. Now turn your ship around before I have you relieved of command." The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. He sat in his chair for a long moment thinking about what Stone had said. The Admiral hadn't seemed surprised by Jake's report about inhabited systems. In fact, he had shut down the conversation very quickly, almost like he already knew what Jake might find. Jake returned to the bridge where Kate was waiting with a concerned expression. "Bad news, Captain?" she asked. "Stone ordered us to turn around. He wasn't interested in hearing about our discoveries." Kate looked surprised. "That doesn't sound like the Admiral I know. He's usually very interested in new discoveries." Jake nodded. That was exactly what bothered him. Admiral Stone had built his career on exploration and discovery. For him to dismiss potential evidence of new civilizations was completely out of character. "Captain," Dr. Helen Brooks called from her station, "I need to report something. I've been monitoring the crew's health since we crossed the boundary markers, and I'm seeing some unusual patterns." Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of patterns?" "Nothing dangerous, but about half the crew is reporting mild headaches and difficulty concentrating when they look at star charts. It's like their brains are having trouble processing the information." "Any idea what's causing it?" Helen shook her head. "I've run every test I can think of. Blood work is normal, brain scans are normal, everything checks out. But the symptoms are definitely real." Rick Hayes looked up from his science station. "Doctor, I think I might have an explanation. I've been analyzing the sensor interference we're experiencing, and I think it's not just affecting our equipment." "What do you mean?" Rick brought up a display on the main screen. "Look at this data. The interference patterns are very specific. They're designed to disrupt certain types of sensors and communication equipment, but I think they might also affect human brain activity." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying someone is deliberately interfering with our equipment and our minds?" "It's possible, Captain. The patterns are too precise to be natural. Someone or something is broadcasting a signal that makes it hard for us to get clear readings of this region." Dan Murphy, the security chief, stood up from his station. "Captain, I recommend we go to yellow alert. If someone is messing with our heads, we need to be ready for anything." Jake nodded. "Do it. But keep the weapons powered down. We don't want to seem threatening to whoever might be out there." The ship's lighting dimmed slightly as they went to yellow alert. Jake could see the tension on his crew's faces, but also their determination. These were good people who had signed up for exploration and discovery. They weren't going to be scared off by a little interference. "Captain, we're approaching the target system," Lisa announced from navigation. "I'm getting much clearer readings now that we're closer." "What can you see?" Lisa studied her instruments. "One star similar to our sun, 4 planets but only one in the habitable zone. And Captain, there's definitely something artificial in orbit around that planet." Jake felt his heart rate increase. "Can you get a visual?" "Working on it, sir." Lisa's fingers flew over her controls. "There we go." The main screen changed to show a distant view of the solar system. Even from this distance, Jake could see that the third planet from the star had something in orbit around it. Something big. "Magnify that," Jake ordered. The image zoomed in until they could see the object clearly. It was a space station, but unlike anything Jake had ever seen, it was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and it had a strange flowing design that seemed almost organic. "My God," Kate whispered. "How long has that been there?" Rick was scanning the station with every instrument they had. "The construction. Materials are unknown, but the energy readings are incredible. This thing is putting out more power than our entire home fleet." "Any signs of life?" Jake asked. "Definitely. I'm reading multiple life signs, but the interference is making it hard to get details." "Wait." Rick paused and adjusted his instruments. "Captain, I think the interference is coming from that station." Jake stared at the massive structure on the screen. Who had built it? How long had it been there? And why was it jamming sensors from human ships? "Amy, try to establish communication," Jake ordered. Amy worked at her station for several minutes. "I'm getting something, Captain. It's not directed at us, but there are definitely signals coming from the station." "Can you decode them?" I'm trying, sir. The patterns are complex, but they seem to be... Wait a minute. Amy's eyes widened. Captain, some of these signals are being directed back toward human space. They're following the same routes as our communication networks. Jake felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. Are you saying they're monitoring our communications? More than that, sir. These signals are being sent along the same paths that our ships use when they report back to fleet. Command. It's like they're tracking our movements. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Jake stared at the alien station and tried to process what they had discovered. Someone had built a massive space station at the edge of human space, and they were actively monitoring and interfering with human exploration efforts. Captain, Pete Collins said from his engineering station, I'm detecting some kind of scanning beam coming from the station. It's very subtle, but they're definitely looking us over. Jake made a decision. I'll stop. Lisa, hold our position here. We're not going any closer until we know what we're dealing with. Aye, sir. Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were also excited. This was what they had signed up for when they joined the Exploration Service. This was the moment when humanity would make contact with something completely new. Amy, open a channel to the station. All frequencies. Amy nodded and began working at her station. After a few moments, she looked up. Channel open, Captain. Jake took a deep breath. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Frontier. We are explorers from the human species. We come in peace and wish to establish communication. They waited in silence for a response. Seconds turned into minutes, and Jake began to wonder if anyone was listening. Then Amy's station lit up with activity. Captain, I'm getting a response. They're using our own communication protocols, but the signal is incredibly clear. Much clearer than our own equipment should be able to produce. Put it through. A voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English with no accent. Captain Morrison, we have been expecting you. My name is Corvani, Station Controller. Please maintain your current position while we prepare to receive you. Jake exchanged glances with his crew. The voice was calm and friendly, but something about it made him uneasy. How long have you been expecting us? Jake asked. Since the moment you decided to leave mapped space, Captain. We have been watching your species for a very long time. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Frontier, staring at the massive alien station on the main screen. The voice that had spoken to them was still waiting for a response, and Jake could feel the tension from his crew. How long have you been watching us? Jake asked again. For over 200 years, Captain Morrison, since your species first began traveling between stars. We have been monitoring your progress and ensuring your safety. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Ensuring our safety from what? From the dangers that exist beyond your current boundaries. The galaxy is not as safe as your people believe. There are threats out there that could destroy your entire civilization. Kate Williams, Jake's first officer, stepped forward. What kind of threats? Many kinds. Artificial intelligences that consume organic life. Creatures that exist outside normal space and time. Entire civilizations that see other species as nothing more than resources to be harvested. Rick Hayes was scanning the station with every instrument they had. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from that station. Whatever they're using for power, it's far beyond anything we have. The alien voice continued. Captain Morrison, we would like to invite you and a small team to visit our station. There is much we need to discuss. And some things are better explained in person. Jake looked around at his crew. Dan Murphy, his security chief, was shaking his head. Captain, this could be a trap. We don't know anything about these people. They've had plenty of chances to attack us if they wanted to, Jake replied. And they're right about one thing. We need answers. Dr. Helen Brooks spoke up from her station. Captain, I should go with you. If we're making first contact with an alien species, we need medical support. I'm also going, said Tony Martinez, the ship's linguist. He was a quiet man who spoke 12 languages and had a gift for understanding how different cultures communicated. Jake nodded. Kate, you have the ship. If anything happens to us, you get back to human space and report what we found. Kate looked worried. Captain, maybe we should contact Fleet Command first. After what? Admiral Stone said. I don't think so. We're on our own here. 20 minutes later, Jake and his team were aboard a shuttle heading for the alien station. As they got closer, the size of the structure became even more impressive. It was easily 50 kilometers across, with sections that seemed to flow and change shape as they watched. "Captain," Dr. Brooks said, "I'm reading multiple atmosphere types within the station. It's like they've designed it to accommodate different species." Tony was studying the structure with interest. "The architecture is fascinating. It doesn't follow any design principles I've seen before. It's almost like it grew rather than being built." Their shuttle was guided to a docking bay that opened to receive them. As they stepped out, Jake was surprised to see that the air was breathable and the gravity was comfortable. The walls around them had a strange organic quality that seemed to pulse with soft light. "Welcome, Captain Morrison," said a voice behind them. Jake turned to see a figure approaching. It was clearly not human, but it was also not threatening. The being was tall and thin, with skin that had a faint blue tint. Its eyes were larger than human eyes, and it moved with a grace that suggested it was comfortable in the artificial gravity. "I am Corvani Station Controller Zara," the being said. "I have been waiting to meet you." Jake stepped forward. "Thank you for receiving us. I'm Captain Jake Morrison, and this is Dr. Helen Brooks and linguist Tony Martinez." Zara nodded to each of them. "Please follow me. There is much to show you." As they walked through the station, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The corridors were wide and filled with different types of beings. Some looked similar to humans, while others were completely alien. All of them seemed to be working together peacefully. "How many species are represented here?" Tony asked. "Currently, we have representatives from 47 different civilizations," Zara replied. "All of them are species that we have helped to protect and guide." They entered a large room with a curved wall that showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Jake could see human space marked in one corner, but it was tiny compared to the rest of the display. "This is why we needed to meet face-to-face," Zara said. "Your people have been living in a very small part of the galaxy, and you have no idea what exists beyond your boundaries." Dr. Brooks was studying the map with fascination. "Those red areas, what do they represent?" "Dangerous regions. Places where species have been destroyed or enslaved. Areas controlled by the threats I mentioned earlier." Jake counted the red areas on the map. There were hundreds of them, scattered throughout the galaxy. "And the blue areas?" "Safe zones, regions where we have been able to establish protection for younger civilizations, like your own." Tony was looking at the map with a troubled expression. "You're saying that humanity has been confined to a safe zone? That we're not free to explore where we want?" Zara's large eyes seemed to show sadness. "Freedom and safety are often in conflict, Mr. Martinez. We have seen too many promising species destroyed because they encountered dangers they were not prepared for." Jake felt anger building inside him. "So you've been keeping us trapped? Making our sensors malfunction so we can't explore?" "We have been protecting you," Zara said firmly. "The interference you experienced was designed to keep human ships from wandering into dangerous areas. We have saved countless lives." "But at what cost?" Jake demanded. "Humanity has always grown stronger by facing challenges, by exploring the unknown. You've been treating us like children." Zara gestured to the map. "Look at these red areas, Captain. Each one represents a species that thought they were ready to face the galaxy's dangers. Each one was wrong." Dr. Brooks was examining some of the alien technology in the room. "The medical equipment here is incredible, years ahead of anything we have. How long have your people been exploring space?" "Over 10,000 years," Zara replied. "We have seen the rise and fall of hundreds of civilizations. We have learned that the young species who survive are those who accept guidance from their elders." Tony was still studying the map. "What about the species that refuse your protection? What happens to them?" Zara was quiet for a moment. "Some choose to face the dangers on their own. Very few survive." Jake felt his anger growing. "And what gives you the right to make that choice for us? Humanity has survived ice ages, wars, plagues, and disasters. We've always found a way to overcome challenges. But you have never faced challenges like these, Zara said, pointing to the red areas on the map. The devourers in the outer rim who consume entire star systems. The mind plague that turns civilizations against themselves. The collectors who steal promising species to use as slaves. Maybe we would have found ways to deal with those threats if we had been allowed to try, Jake said. Zara looked at him, with what might have been respect. Perhaps. Your species does show unusual determination. But are you willing to risk the lives of billions of humans to prove that point? The room fell silent as Jake considered the question. He thought about Earth, about the colonies, about all the people who would be at risk if humanity ventured into the dangerous parts of the galaxy. What about the other species you're protecting? Dr. Brooks asked. Do they know about this arrangement? Some do. Others, like humanity, are discovering it for the first time. Each species must make its own choice when they are ready. Jake looked around the room at all the alien technology, at the map showing the vast galaxy beyond human space, at the being who claimed to be protecting his species. We need to return to our ship, Jake said finally. We need time to think about this. Zara nodded. Of course, but Captain Morrison, I hope you will consider carefully. The choice you make will affect not just your own life, but the future of your entire species. As they rode the shuttle back to the USS Frontier, Jake's mind was racing. The Corvani claimed to be protecting humanity, but they had been doing it by deception and manipulation. They had kept humans ignorant of the true galaxy, confined to a small safe zone like animals in a cage. But they also claimed that the galaxy was full of dangers that could destroy humanity. Dangers that had already destroyed hundreds of other species, Captain, Dr. Brooks said quietly. What are we going to do? Jake stared out at the stars, at the vast unknown that stretched beyond human space. I don't know, Helen. But I know we can't make this decision alone. The whole human race deserves to know the truth. Even if the truth is dangerous? Tony asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Especially if the truth is dangerous. That's what makes us human. Back on the USS Frontier, Captain Jake Morrison called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The conference room felt smaller than usual as they sat around the table, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had learned on the Corvani station. So let me make sure I understand this, Kate Williams said, breaking the silence. The Corvani have been secretly controlling human exploration for 200 years. They've been jamming our sensors and manipulating our technology to keep us from leaving what they call a safe zone. That's right, Jake replied. And according to them, they're doing it to protect us from threats that could destroy our entire civilization. Rick Hayes was studying data from their visit to the station. Captain, I've been analyzing the scans I took while we were there. The technology level of the Corvani is incredible. They're easily 1,000 years ahead of us in almost every area. Dr. Helen Brooks looked troubled. But that doesn't give them the right to control us. Even if they mean well, they're treating humanity like children who can't make their own decisions. Dan Murphy, the security chief, leaned forward. What bothers me is how they knew we were coming. They said they've been watching us since we left mapped space. That means they have surveillance throughout human territory. Lisa Grant had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. Captain, I think there's something else we need to consider. While you were on the station, I did some more detailed scans of this system. I found something that the Corvani didn't tell us about. Jake looked at her with interest. What did you find? Lisa activated the wall display and showed a 3-dimensional map of the local area. Look at this. There are artificial structures on 2 of the other planets in this system. Not Corvani technology, but something else entirely. Rick studied the display. Those energy signatures are completely different from what we saw on the station. Could there be another species here? That's what I thought too, Lisa said. But when I tried to get more detailed scans, I ran into the same kind of interference we experienced at the boundary, like someone doesn't want us to see what's really there. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Lisa, plot a course for the nearest of those structures, but keep us at long range. As the USS Frontier moved toward the second planet, the crew watched their sensors carefully. The interference was definitely there, but it was different from what they had experienced before. This felt more desperate, like someone was trying very hard to hide something. "Captain, I'm getting some kind of signal," Amy Foster said from her communication station. "It's very weak and heavily encrypted, but it's definitely artificial." "Can you decode it?" Amy worked at her station for several minutes. "I'm getting fragments, sir. It's in... Wait. This can't be right. What is it, Amy?" "Captain, parts of this signal are in English." The bridge fell silent. Jake felt his heart rate increase. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. Listen to this." Amy played a recording of the signal. Through the static and interference, they could hear a faint voice speaking English with an American accent. "Day 437 in exile. Supplies running low. Hope someone receives this message." Jake stared at the communication station. "That's a human voice. There are humans on that planet." Kate looked shocked. "But that's impossible. No human ships have been sent to this region. None that we know about," Jake said grimly. "Lisa, take us closer. I want to know who's down there." As they approached the planet, their sensors began to pick up more details. There were definitely artificial structures on the surface and life signs that matched human biology. "Captain," Rick said, studying his instruments, "I'm reading at least 200 human life signs down there. They're living in what looks like a settlement built around some kind of crashed spacecraft." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Prepare a shuttle, we're going down there." "Captain," Dan said, "the Corvani specifically told us to stay in this area. If we leave without permission..." "The Corvani have been lying to us from the beginning," Jake replied. "I'm not going to ask their permission to rescue human beings." An hour later, Jake and a small team were on the planet's surface. The settlement was larger than they had expected, with buildings that looked like they had been constructed over many years. People came out to meet them, and Jake was shocked by what he saw. These were definitely humans, but they were wearing clothes and using equipment that looked decades old. Some of the older people had gray hair and lined faces, while others were clearly much younger. "My God," one of the older men said, staring at Jake's uniform. "You're from Earth Fleet. How did you find us?" Jake stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Frontier. We're here to help. Can you tell me who you are and how you got here?" The man's eyes filled with tears. "I'm Commander Bill Watson, formerly of the exploration ship USS Discovery. We've been stranded here for 15 years. Jake felt shock run through him. "The USS Discovery? But your ship was reported lost with all hands. Fleet Command said you were destroyed in a navigation accident." "Navigation accident?" Another person stepped forward, a woman with graying hair. "I'm Dr. Susan Clark, the Discovery's chief medical officer. We weren't destroyed, Captain, we were captured." "Captured by who?" Bill Watson gestured toward the sky. "By them. The Corvani. They disabled our ship when we tried to explore beyond. The boundary markers. They told us our ship was too damaged to repair and that we were the only survivors." Jake's mind was racing. But why would they do that? "They claim to be protecting human civilization. That's what they told us too," Dr. Clark said bitterly. "They said they were saving us from dangers we couldn't understand. They relocated us here and told us we would be safe as long as we stayed on this planet." "How many of you are there?" 234, Bill replied. "The original crew of the Discovery plus the children who have been born here over the years." Jake looked around at the settlement, at the people who had been living in exile for 15 years, while their families back home believed them dead. "Have you tried to contact Earth?" "Many times," Dr. Clark said. "But our communications are jammed. The only signals that get through are the ones the Corvani allow." A younger woman stepped forward. "Captain, I'm Lisa Watson, Bill's daughter. I was 5 years old when we were brought here. I've never seen Earth, never seen any other humans except the people in this settlement." Jake felt anger building inside. Him. The Corvani had stolen these people from their lives, from their families, and had kept them prisoner for 15 years, all in the name of protection. Are there other settlements like this one? Jake asked. Bill nodded. We've detected signals from at least 3 other locations. Ships that disappeared over the years, crews that were reported lost. The Corvani have been collecting humans for decades. Why haven't you tried to escape? Dr. Clark looked sad. Where would we go, Captain? Our ship was destroyed, and we were told that the space around us is filled with deadly threats. The Corvani convinced most of us that staying here was our only chance of survival. Jake looked around at the faces of the people surrounding him. These were his own species, humans who had been taken from their lives and kept in comfortable prison for 15 years. That's going to change, Jake said firmly. We're going to get you out of here. But Captain, Bill said, the Corvani have ships, weapons, technology far beyond anything we have. How can we possibly fight them? Jake thought about the conversation he had had with Zara on the station. The Corvani genuinely believed they were helping, but they were willing to destroy human lives to do it. We're not going to fight them, Jake said. We're going to expose them. The people of Earth deserve to know the truth about what's been happening out here. The truth? Lisa Watson asked. What truth? Jake looked up at the sky where he knew the Corvani station was waiting. The truth about the choice we've never been allowed to make. The choice between safety and freedom. He activated his communicator. Morrison to Frontier. Kate, I need you to prepare a full data burst to Earth. Everything we've learned about the Corvani, everything we've found here. It's time for humanity to know what's really been happening beyond our borders. Captain, Kate's voice came back. The Corvani are hailing us. They want to know why we left the designated area. Jake smiled grimly. Tell them we're exercising our right as free beings to explore wherever we choose. And Kate, make sure that data burst is ready to transmit on my signal. The time for secrets was over. Humanity was about to learn the truth about their place in the galaxy, whether the Corvani wanted them to or not. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the settlement on the alien planet, surrounded by humans who had been prisoners for 15 years. His communicator crackled with urgent messages from his ship. Captain, Kate Williams' voice came through clearly. 3 Corvani ships are approaching our position. They're demanding that we return to the station immediately. Jake looked at Commander Bill Watson and the other survivors from the Discovery. These people had been stolen from their lives, and their families on Earth still believed they were dead. Kate, send that data burst to Earth now. All frequencies, maximum power. I want every communication station in human space to receive it. Aye, Captain. Transmitting now. Jake knew this would change everything. In a few hours, every human colony would know the truth about the Corvani and their so-called protection. Captain Morrison, a new voice spoke from his communicator. It was Zara from the Corvani station. You must stop this transmission immediately. You do not understand the consequences of your actions. Jake activated his communicator. I understand. Perfectly, Zara. You've been lying to us for 200 years. You've been kidnapping our people and keeping them as prisoners. We have been saving them, Zara replied, her voice showing strain. The crews we relocated were heading into areas that would have killed them. We gave them life instead of death. Dr. Susan Clark stepped forward and took the communicator from Jake. Zara, this is Dr. Susan Clark of the USS Discovery. You stole 15 years of my life. You stole my daughter's childhood. You made my husband believe I was dead. Don't you dare call that saving us. There was silence from the communicator for a long moment. Then Zara spoke again, and her voice sounded different. Sadder. Dr. Clark, I remember you. You were one of the most determined to return home. But the space beyond your ship was filled with Devourer scouts. They would have detected you within days. That was our choice to make, Dr. Clark said firmly. Not yours. Back on the USS Frontier, Lisa Grant was monitoring the data transmission to Earth. Captain, the signal is getting through. I'm receiving acknowledgement from communication stations throughout human space. Rick Hayes was watching his sensors, nervously. Captain, those Corvani ships are powering up their weapons. I don't think they're going to let us leave. Jake made a decision that would define humanity's future. All crew, return to the ship immediately. Bill, Susan, get your people. Ready. We're taking everyone home. Captain, Bill Watson said, there are over 200 of us. Your ship can't carry that many people. We'll make room, Jake replied. No one gets left behind. As the shuttles began ferrying people from the planet to the USS Frontier, the Corvani ships moved closer. Jake returned to his ship and went straight to the bridge. Report, he ordered as he took his command chair. 3 Corvani vessels in attack formation, Kate replied. They're not firing yet, but their weapons are charged. Captain, Amy Foster called from communications. I'm receiving messages from Earth. The data burst caused quite a stir. Admiral Stone is ordering all ships to return to their bases immediately. Jake wasn't surprised. Stone had known about the Corvani all along. Any other responses? Yes, sir. Captain Nancy Price of the USS Explorer says she's detected similar interference patterns near the Vega sector. She's requesting permission to investigate. Jake smiled. Other ship captains were already beginning to question the blank spaces on their maps. Captain, Rick announced, I'm detecting something else. There are ships approaching from the direction of human space. A lot of ships. The main screen changed to show a tactical display. At least 20 human vessels were approaching their position, led by a ship Jake recognized as the USS Defender, Admiral Stone's flagship. It looks like the Admiral decided to come personally, Kate observed. Sir, Lisa called from her station. The last shuttle is docking. All survivors from the planet are aboard. Jake activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to return to human space with over 200 people who were believed dead. These people are proof that we have been lied to about our place in the galaxy. Prepare for possible conflict. The Corvani station controller's voice came over the communication system again. Captain Morrison, you are making a terrible mistake. The galaxy beyond your safe zone contains threats that will destroy your species. We have protected you for centuries. Jake stood up and walked to the main screen. Zara, answer me this. In all the time you've been watching us, have humans ever run away from a fight? Have we ever chosen the easy path when our freedom was at stake? No, Zara admitted. Your species is remarkably stubborn. Then you should have known this day would come eventually. Humans don't stay in cages no matter how comfortable you make them. Dr. Helen Brooks had been monitoring the health of the rescued people. Captain, I've been talking to the survivors. They've told me about other settlements, other captured crews. There could be thousands of humans out there who have been taken over the years. Jake felt his anger growing. The scope of the Corvani deception was enormous. Captain, Dan Murphy reported from his security station. Admiral Stone's ship is hailing us. Put him through. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the screen and he looked furious. Morrison, you've caused a diplomatic disaster. The Corvani have been our allies for decades. They've been protecting us from threats we can't handle. Allies. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. Admiral, they've been kidnapping our people. They've been lying to us about the galaxy. How can you call them allies? Because without them, humanity would have been extinct years ago, Stone replied. There are things out there that could destroy entire star systems. The Corvani have kept us safe. Jake looked around at his crew, at the determination on their faces. Admiral, with respect, safety isn't worth anything if we have to give up our freedom to get it. You're putting the entire human race at risk for your principles, Morrison. No, sir, I'm giving the human race a choice, something we should have had from the beginning. At that moment, something unexpected happened. Amy Foster's communication station lit up with incoming messages. Captain, she said with excitement, I'm receiving transmissions from all over human space. Ships are reporting that their sensor interference has stopped. They're getting clear readings of space beyond the boundary markers for the first time. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Corvani ships were backing away and their energy signatures were changing. What's happening to them? Kate asked. Rick studied his instruments. It looks like they're shutting down their interference systems, all of them. Zara's voice came over the communication system one more time. Captain Morrison, you have forced our hand. We are withdrawing our protection from human space. The interference fields that have kept dangerous signals from reaching your territory are being deactivated. Why? Jake asked. Because there are others among my people who believe as you do. They think that sapient species have the right to choose their own path, even if it leads to destruction. They have convinced our council to let humanity face the galaxy on its own terms. Jake felt a mixture of relief and fear. They had won their freedom, but now they would have to face whatever dangers existed in the galaxy. Zara, what about the other settlements? The humans you've been holding? They will be given the same choice you have made. Return to their old lives or stay in the safety we have provided. The decision will be theirs. Over the next few hours, Jake watched as the galaxy opened up to humanity. Ships throughout human space reported clear sensor readings showing star systems, civilizations, and yes, dangerous areas that had been hidden for centuries. The blank spaces on the maps were blank no longer. They showed a galaxy full of wonders and terrors, opportunities and challenges. Jake looked at the main screen showing the vast expanse of space ahead of them. The USS Frontier was leading a small fleet of human ships toward home, carrying the survivors and the truth about humanity's place in the galaxy. Captain, Kate said quietly, what do you think will happen now? Jake smiled as he watched the stars ahead. Now we get to find out what humans can really accomplish when we're free to choose our own path. It's going to be dangerous, Kate, but it's going to be magnificent.